Hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new animated film Spies in Disguise. This is a film that came out on Christmas Day. It had a lot of hype to it. I think it was originally going to come out in September, and for whatever reason, the animation studio that made it pushed it into Christmas time, had a lot more hope for it than just a simple little fall release. Um, so here I am talking about this film. I really liked the trailers for the most part. It wasn't a film I was dying to see or anything, but for the most part, I was pretty intrigued by the trailers. I thought they were really funny. Thought the concept was kind of funny for an animated film, and so there was just a couple things about it that I was fairly interested in. So in this film, you guys, in Spies in Disguise, it's about a secret agent that Will Smith is voicing in the movie, and the secret agent is kind of framed for this horrible thing that this bad guy framed him for on this mission that he goes on early on in the movie. And so he basically needs to vanish for a little while. His lab assistant at this agency that he works for claims that he has a way of making him disappear for a while. So out of nowhere, the Will Smith character just kind of drinks this formula that he has no idea what it is and what it can do. But his lab assistant claims it can make him vanish for a while, which is what he kind of needs to get this mission out of the way and to kind of free up his name and make sure that he's cleared of this horrible thing that this villain has framed him for. And as it turns out, it wasn't a finished serum of any kind, and actually turns Will Smith into a pigeon, since the lab assistant has a pigeon himself and used a feather from that pigeon on the serum that clearly wasn't finished yet and wasn't ready for a person to officially drink the serum yet. So as a result, Will Smith's character turns into a pigeon, and he still has to do secret agent things while he's a pigeon because his lab assistant hasn't made a cure yet, since this antidote hasn't been made for this serum yet, and even the serum itself wasn't even officially finished yet. So he basically took this unfinished serum that turned him into this, and so throughout this movie he has to basically clear his name, make sure that all these horrible things that he was framed for, that this villain's trying to frame him for, were not him. They were something that this villain was doing, using his face as a prosthetic to do these horrible things with. And so throughout the course of this film, the lab assistant has to make a cure for Will Smith, while Will Smith's character has to clear his name as this pigeon, and he still has to be a secret agent while he's a pigeon. So overall, guys, I enjoyed this film. It's not a film I'm going to be writing home about and make sure everybody on the face of the earth goes and sees it or anything. It's a fairly enjoyable movie. There's still a part of me that wonders why it was released on Christmas, why it wasn't just a small little quiet September release like it was originally going to be. Nothing about this film really screams like Christmas blockbuster to me. So that part of me is still a little confusing on the marketing behalf. Overall, too, I would say there's not as much pigeon stuff in this movie as I thought there was going to be. So I'm going to go over that more in my positives and negatives. But for those who are wondering, not the entire film is Will Smith as this pigeon. That's definitely an element of the movie. It's something that the film works with for a little while. It doesn't completely focus on that. But for the most part, it's a fairly enjoyable secret agent film with some funny scenes involving some pigeons. So overall, for my review for this movie, you guys, for my positives and negatives, for the most part, whenever Will Smith is a pigeon in this film, it's really funny. So the pigeon scenes are hilarious. I like the point of view that they're filmed in. I like how other pigeons try to work with him and be like his assistants on these missions. Even one of the girl pigeons kind of likes Will Smith and stuff like that. So all the pigeon stuff was really funny in this movie. So if you were worried about that going into this movie, the pigeon stuff is actually very hilarious. I kind of like the pigeon scenes more than some of the secret agent scenes, believe it or not. And overall, this is a pretty funny film. There is a lot of jokes that land very well in this movie. So if you're hoping for a very funny film, Spies in Disguise should do the trick for you. There's also a lot of cool secret agent material and settings in this movie. They go to Venice in one scene. They travel the world in several scenes. So there's a lot of international flavors in this movie. They obviously are doing things all over the place. It's not just in the US or anything like that. So there's a lot of cool secret agent things, specifically in the beginning when we kind of are introduced to Will Smith's character as this agent. So a lot of cool secret agent stuff that they do in this movie. So I was pretty impressed with that. Will Smith and Tom Holland are the two main voices in this movie. Will Smith is obviously the secret agent turned pigeon. Tom Holland is the lab assistant trying to cure Will Smith and turn him back into a human after accidentally turning him into this pigeon with the serum. And I thought the two of them worked off of each other very well. I thought they were very funny working together, even though they're not physically in the film together. They're just voicing these characters. I thought their voice chemistry was very effective in this film. There's a lot of scenes where they're sharing the scene together and they got to work through scenarios together. And the two of them I thought were very funny in this film, and they worked off of each other very well. I also like the international look of this film. So when they're in Venice, it feels like something that was made in Venice. When they're in China doing something, it feels like something they're doing in China or that was made in China. When they're, I think there's a scene where they're out in Iceland somewhere. It really does kind of feel like you're in Iceland with these characters. So that's definitely an applause to the animation staff in this film, really making it look like we're internationally traveling with these characters and that we're in these places with these characters in animated form. This is also a very entertaining family film. It's definitely one of those films where little kids, adults, teenagers, married couples, retired couples, all these people can really enjoy this movie. There's really nothing super harmful or offensive about it. It's a very safe, innocent time at the theater, so it's a very entertaining family film. So if you're looking for a safe entertainment movie that isn't too violent or full of bad language or anything like that, Spies in Disguise should be able to do the trick for you. For my negatives of Spies in Disguise, though, I thought the momentum of this film really lost itself in the second half. It really does lose momentum in the second half of this movie. I would say the stuff with the pigeons were not as quite as funny anymore. The secret agent scenes weren't quite as good as they are in the first half. On the scenes where we do get to see Will Smith as this agent again, quite clear based on the plot of this movie that he's eventually going to have to turn back into that secret agent again. It really kind of lost momentum for me. There's just a lot of scenes where just the action and the humor and the creativity didn't quite feel as good as it was in the first half. So I thought that was kind of a disappointing element of this movie, as it really does lose momentum in the second half of the movie. I also thought the villain was very lame in this film, and his motivation was very generic and lame. He just wants to kill everybody who's associated with a secret agent because, having secret agents is kind of his thing that he doesn't like, and he's going to interfere with any type of mission that he goes on, and wants to be able to take over the world, and just all the stuff you hear in every single secret agent film ever made. So I thought the overall villain in this film was very lame. Ben Mendelsohn, who is the voice of this character in the movie, who's been playing villains for a long time now in movies. I just thought the overall villain he played this time around was very, very lame. The motivation was very lame. So I just thought this film could have benefited from a better, more interesting villain, because whenever he's on screen, I just kind of wanted them to do more funny pigeon stuff, because the stuff with the villain was pretty lame for the most part. And I thought Ben Mendelsohn himself was much more capable than this, whether it's like a Ready Player One or Rogue One, a Star Wars story. We've seen him do better roles than this before. I also thought this film really didn't have like much of a Pixar edge to it. I think Blue Sky Studios was the animation company behind this movie. I personally feel the story would have done better at like a Pixar or DreamWorks or even Sony Animation. I just thought the way it was handled here just felt very kind of generic. I thought Pixar could have added more humor and more fun to the movie and more originality, possibly with the secret agent stuff. I actually think they should have done this instead of Cars 2 for their secret agent movie, because I thought Cars 2 was a very just lame movie overall. So this film would have benefited from a more Pixar edge, just to have it more edgy, do more original creative stuff with the animation, even though a lot of it is done very well. There just wasn't enough of a Pixar edge to this movie for me. I also thought overall there just wasn't enough pigeon scenes. I would say about 25-30 minutes of this film is Will Smith as the pigeon, and the rest of it is him as a secret agent or him back as a secret agent doing more secret agent stuff towards the end of the movie. And that's really not a spoiler. I would just assume that most of you know that's kind of how the plot's going to go with this movie. And that's another thing about this film. It's very predictable. There's nothing really super surprising about this movie also. So there's just not enough pigeon scenes, and that's kind of unfortunate because it's some of the better parts of the movie. They're funnier. They put Will Smith's character in scenarios that he's not used to being in. He doesn't have the strong hands as his agent anymore. He doesn't have his sneakiness that he had when he was a person. There's just a lot of things he had as a person, as a secret agent, that he doesn't have as a pigeon. And it makes it for a more interesting film because he's in a scenario where he has more barriers than usual. So I thought by having less pigeon scenes, it kind of ruins the opportunity for the story to play around with that some more. So I thought this film could have benefited from some more pigeon scenes, to be honest. I also thought there wasn't enough originality and enough spy parody to this movie. There's scenes where it kind of suggests that it wants to be both, and it doesn't balance those two very well. There's scenes where it's trying to be this original animated spy film, and there's other scenes that are trying to parody spy films like Goldfinger and Skyfall and Mission Impossible. And there's just a very unhealthy balance of the two. So as a result, there's not enough spy parody and there's not enough spy originality to this movie. I also thought the overall character development was very weak in this film. I thought every single character was the exact same character towards the end of the film, and that's definitely a result of bad character development. I'm not saying this had to be a life lesson film or a film where these characters learn life lessons throughout it, but just the fact that every single character was literally the exact same character at the end of the film, I think is saying something about the weak character development of this movie. But overall, I'm going to give Spies in Disguise 8 out of 10. It's an enjoyable, fun time at the theater. I don't think I have to rush you out to the theater to see this movie. I think seeing it at Redbox is perfectly fine. I still don't kind of understand why this film was released around Christmas time. I think September would have been a more reasonable time to release this film. I don't know how they thought this could have stood a chance against Star Wars or anything like that. But overall, good film. If you like secret agent films, you want another good animated film to watch, this is a nice little like Redbox movie. It's entertaining enough. Would have preferred something that was just better than entertaining enough. But 8 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed Spies in Disguise. If you're fairly interested in seeing it like I was, it's not a bad way to spend your secret agent time at the theater.